Welcome to Beyond the Money Radio with Jackie Campbell. Jackie is a certified financial planner, CPA, personal financial specialist, and founding partner of Campbell Company Wealth Advisors and CPAs.
I'm always a firm believer that prior planning pays, and you're never going to get to something if you don't even know where you're at and what path you need to take to get there.
Campbell Company has been a staple in the greater Tampa Bay area for over 30 years, serving residents from Trinity to Orlando, the Villages, and beyond.
We're focusing on where you're at, what changes you need to make, what you need to stop doing, what you need to start doing, and what you should continue doing.
Now, because there's more to life than just finances, let's go Beyond the Money.
And it's all powered by Campbell Company Wealth Advisors and CPAs. Thanks for hanging out with us this weekend on Beyond the Money Radio and the Beyond the Money podcast. 352-251-1015, always available at mycampbellandco.com. My name is Mark Owens. Jackie, I want to jump right into it this weekend because I keep hearing this term called a market melt up. Some people are describing the market. That's what we're in right now, a melt up. When stocks keep climbing, fueled by investor FOMO, and historically that kind of run up can sometimes be followed by a sharp pullback. As we get into it here this weekend, I want you to hear this clip from financial advisor Ryan Lynch, who tells Fox Business that he's still a little bullish.
You know, we've had geopolitics whipsawing the market back and forth. We've been in this cycle for a few months now. What we've been trying to do is reposition, trimming some winners that we've had long-time risers in, and trying to put some shock absorbers in, where we're getting equity exposure still with an upside multiple, but building downside protection. We still think that there's a lot of growth in this market.
All right, let's get to it, because are we in a market melt-up? How would you describe that? And do we need to be preserving a little bit more when it comes to the market, Jackie?
Yeah, well, I think the goal is not just to look at short-term opportunities. We want to make sure and take advantage of those when they're there, but definitely, having some protection. I mean, that's really the key. And rebalancing, when you have such a difference, right? Different sectors, different, parts of the market are doing really well and performing better than others, making sure that you're looking at rebalancing, that you're not taking on any unnecessary risk. So diversification, making sure you've got money that's liquid. And, like you said, you're making sure that you don't have over-concentration in one sector or one company.
You mentioned risk right there. How often do you sit down with somebody? And we're going to talk about the 360-degree retirement roadmap here in just a couple of seconds. And it's a deep dive into our financial portfolio. And you find that people are either being, too risky, or you go, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you are not being risky enough. You've got time. You've got the assets. Let's put a little more risk in your portfolio. What happens more often?
The key is kind of starting where you're at, right? How much risk do you have in your portfolio, making sure that your risk tolerance, it's not just when the market's doing really well that we want to evaluate your tolerance. Those are the easy periods, right? For any financial advisor, any fiduciary active care, right? Those are the easy parts. You as the investor, that is the easy part when the market is doing really well. But when the market does not do well and when there's a lot more volatility, that's when what you're able to tolerate and what risk you really need to take. Because I find that often, Mark, when we have that very first conversation with someone, we come in, we do a discovery, we go in and we review their portfolio, we review their risk, their tolerance, how much risk they are taking currently in their portfolio, and how successful they're going to be in their retirement years. And when you see that you can take somebody past 100, 105, 110, most people laugh and chuckle and say, well, I'm not going to make it that far. Don't want to have that much left for all my heirs or my beneficiaries. What do I need to do to be able to spend a little bit more of that money now and or start some gifting and be real intentional with what they have? But the thing is, how much do you need to risk when you're already winning the game? But those are the kind of emotional financial decisions that we'll go through when you reach out. We go through your financial plan, your 360 degrees. So that will look at everything. And risk is absolutely one of those things that we're going to pay attention to and make sure and have some understanding of how much risk you're taking. And maybe you don't even know you're taking that much risk, and how much are you going to be able to tolerate over time. And it all starts with a phone call. 352-251-1015, or you can go online at mycampbellandco.com.
Jack, you just mentioned it, the 360-degree retirement roadmap, available this weekend to our radio audience. if you've saved at least $500,000 or more for your financial future, for your retirement. Congratulations. You've done a fantastic job of saving. You've got a nice 401k. You're lucky to have a pension, but now you just need a little guidance. How can we build upon your gains? That's the retirement roadmap. Break it down for me a little bit more, Jackie. What can you do for me? What can you do for those adults that just need to continue to build income off of their portfolio with the 360-degree roadmap?
Well, that's just it. It all depends on where you're at on that timeline of life, right? If you look at 0 to 100 or age 1 to 100, where are you at on that timeline? And I will tell you that they go by faster and faster and faster. The years and the decades go by fast, even though the days can go slow sometimes. And where are you at? What is your goal? When do you want to retire? But it's more than that. It's what if you need to retire early? What if you become sick? What if you lose your job? What if there's major economic changes that you are forced out of your position? We look at all of those different things, those what ifs that can happen along that timeline called life. How much have you saved so far? How much risk are you taking, and how much will you need? And honestly, Mark, it kind of starts with the end. I'm a nerd. I'm a math nerd, and I used to take math tests for fun. But it's like reverse mathing, and you start with what you're trying to achieve, and we work backwards to where are we at now? What do we need to do to make sure that we're planning correctly for all of those different things that can affect your balance, that you have to figure out how to turn that into an income stream. So there's multiple things going in there, and that's why we've designed our process for the past almost 33 years, seeing all the consequences of things done well, what that looks like at the end of the day in your retirement, when somebody's enjoying retirement and when somebody passes away, and what the messes are for their families to either appreciate that everything was orderly and very smooth and how much they're getting in inheritance, or what kind of disasters they have to work with a legal team to clean up at the end of the day. And then there's taxes. Nobody ever wants to pay any more taxes than they absolutely legally have to. So when you're coordinating all those things, and that's kind of why we designed that 360-degree retirement roadmap. And honestly, it's reverse mathing. It's reverse engineering. What are those 5 key things that we need to pay attention to have a true prior planning pays retirement roadmap? And that's exactly what we do. It all starts with where you're at, and it's focused on you. We don't guide you, and we don't tell you what to do. We don't dictate. We don't go through all those things. Like, we co-author your financial story, because at the end of the day, we have one financial life. You don't have a tax life and a tax plan over here, and you don't have your liquid money and your part of your investments over here and part of your investments over there, because no one's coordinating that strategic plan. And then you've got your income plan. How much income do you have? Do you have a pension? Are you fortunate enough to have a pension? Having guaranteed sustainable income that you can't outlive in retirement. The more sources of income that you have, typically the better. But coordinating all of those things, and then you have taxes. We talked a little bit about that, but at the end of the day, it's not what you have in your accounts, it's what you get to keep after taxes. And then legacy. Nobody really likes to talk about death and taxes, but guess what? There are 2 things that are certain in life. And if we approach them from a non-emotional standpoint, planning in advance, it makes it a little bit easier to really, truly look at it like an eye exam. If this happens, what do you want this to look like? If this happens, which one looks better, A or B? And, truly come up with a plan that's going to be helping you navigate to and through retirement. And we really and truly love the ability to co-author our clients' financial plan, their one financial life, and it all just starts, Mark, with a phone call or just reaching out at mycampbellandco.com. There's a place right there in the middle of our homepage on our website, and you can just put in there, one financial life, need that full 360 planning, or I need help with a specific part of it, figuring out my income, figuring out when to start Social Security, figuring out the taxation after I retire, whatever that scenario may be for you on that journey that you have called life, and let us see how we can help you.
Again, that number, 352-251-1015. We have a representative standing by right now. You can simply just say, I heard Jackie talking about building income in retirement, always thinking about taxes. Hey, Jackie and the team, I just need help with my risk in my portfolio. Our representative will understand. We get it every single week, both on the website and through the radio show calls of people just saying, Jackie, I need help with blank. So what do you need help with? How can Jackie help you with the 360-degree retirement roadmap? Give the team a call, 352-251-1015, or online at mycampbellandco.com. And I'm still kind of stuck on the fact that you said you used to take math tests just for fun. I don't know how I feel about that, Jackie. I'm proud of you. You're a math nerd. I'm okay with that.
Well, I will tell you, if you look at everything around you, and I would challenge everybody to pay attention to this, just about everything you do on a daily basis has math built into it, because math is all about patterns and recognizing the patterns and, how much time something takes you to do, how much it costs you. And at the end of the day, it's reverse mathing for everything you do in life.
And that's why I love that you're a math nerd, because you see angles that nobody else does. And I'm totally 100% okay with that. You talk about just recognizing our life or building a retirement plan, and we have to start backwards. There's a lot of conversations now about Social Security, and if Social Security, if there will be cuts to our benefits moving forward if Congress does nothing. And there have been some people that have said, well, why don't we just push the full retirement age? Why don't we push it from 67 to 69? That could shore up a little bit of money in the Social Security Administration. That could help benefit some people. But that could also, I don't know, it feels like that could cause damage to retirement plans that are already being written. So when you hear about the full retirement age, the age being bumped up a couple of years, how do you react to that? How could that do damage, or could it be a positive aspect?
Well, definitely. That's one of those things that we can't control, right? And anytime we're doing planning, that's my advice, and that's how we approach any financial planning. And it all starts with, what can we control? Like how much money you're going to spend. A good part of that you can control. What's your lifestyle going to be? What kind of experiences? What level of experiences do you want in retirement? Taxes, that's one of those things we can't really control, but you can do some proactive planning to make sure that you're considering things like Roth conversions early when your income is down, making sure that you don't leave any really low tax brackets on the table all through those years and those decades, right? There's definitely ways that we can work on that. Your Social Security check and what they're going to do with that full retirement age, those are things that we can't control. But when we make that election to actually start collecting your own benefits, and if we're looking at, for one life, a single life, or your spouse, if you're looking at two lives, what is the best strategy and planning scenario for two lives, not just one? So we look at all those things. We look at your health. We look at when you need the income. We look at, longevity in your family. And of course, we look at the reality, right? The economics, the things that we can't control, like what is your full retirement age legally.
If you have questions about your Social Security, for a lot of adults, it's going to be an added part of their income in retirement, and want to know, when would it be best for me to start taking Social Security? Should I take it a little bit early? Should I wait until the full retirement age? What if there are benefits that are changed? 352-251-1015. Again, 352-251-1015, or online at mycampbellandco.com.
But, doing something, planning for it, testing it to see if I take my Social Security at 62, or if I wait till 65 or 70, what will that look like in a short-term and a long-term scenario? And we're also making market, assumptions along the way. But even if we do some really, really conservative planning, sometimes just doing the planning gives you that added peace of mind that, hey, I know I'm not in control of all these things, and they may bump back the full retirement age from 67 to 68, or maybe 69. I mean, years ago, it was much younger because life expectancy was very low. So it's all relative into where we're at and what is happening in your personal scenario. But doing nothing could be the harshest outcome of all. Don't leave it to chance. Don't leave it to whatever the laws are they're going to be. Let's make sure and test your plan, and making sure that, you're also not just saying, I'm having an emotional behavior and reaction to this because I need to get my benefits while there's still some benefits to get, right? I hear that often. And, we just try to take the emotions out of those sort of decisions and let the math kind of guide that scenario or that next choice or decision. Because at the end of the day, 62, the earliest you can claim your Social Security, all the way up to 70. And I have seen both scenarios. I've seen what's, the good and the bad out of all of it, right? It takes about 8 years or so to break even. So if you're not going to live, till 70, 72, then, that you think that's going to be your life expectancy, then maybe we take that Social Security earlier. Let's take a look at it, do the math, test the numbers, and look at that Social Security maximization. But doing nothing can be the worst scenario of all.
Not having a plan is not a plan. Let's put a plan together with Jackie Campbell. 352-251-1015 or online at mycampbellandco.com. And Jackie, we had the opportunity to go to a spot on this, I don't want to say on the East Coast. I don't want to say in the country. I want to say maybe a spot that 1% of the world has been to. Jackie Campbell, we had the opportunity to go spend some time at Mara-a-Lago. First and foremost, what's your takeaways from our experience, our bucket list trip, and chatting with Donald Trump Jr.?
Well, definitely an epic experience, right? Confetti moments is kind of a good description for it as well. I wish we could have, taken our own little tour around the property, but you have to kind of stay in your box. You go through all the security, the real heavy security there on the front end, and then don't take a left or don't take a right. You kind of have to stay there. And that was hard for me, but and can't just take pictures of everything, right? So really, really strict. But what a beautiful place! What a nostalgia! I mean, just I was just trying to imagine like some of the conversations and some of the atmosphere, that must have taken place in that home, right? No matter which side of the aisle you're on, right? Be a Trump, lover or not, red or blue. Money is still green at the end of the day, but still having the ability to go and listen firsthand, to those conversations and have somebody else, be interviewed for, listen to what they're saying, what's going on in the economy and the world, sort of their viewpoint growing up, right? With a billionaire family and family enterprises, right? So if as an entrepreneur, I really appreciated the fact of hearing those kind of things, the grit and all of the learning at a very early age.
So we had the opportunity, a handful of us in the industry, we got to go spend some time at Mar-a-Lago and sit down and have a Q&A with Donald Trump Jr. Got to have dinner and cocktails out by the pool, and everyone asked the same thing. They were like, well, what is it like down there? And I was like, it's just as gaudy and beautiful as you think it would be. There is gold everywhere, and we were in our best dress the entire time. And then when we had the opportunity to have a conversation with Donald Trump Jr., he was very relaxed. He wasn't overly political. You can tell he is his dad's son. And with that being said, I want to play you a couple of clips from this conversation. And here's Donald Trump Jr. talking about some of the business advice he got from his father.
Don't do anything you don't love. If you don't love it, you're never going to be good at it. You're never going to put in the time. You're never going to put in the effort. Nothing really comes that easy. And I get where, Donald Trump Jr., I understand I have been blessed, but, they made us work the menial jobs. I was, at 12 years old, I was working, at a marina away from home during the summers, as a dock attendant. And then he made me, drive tractors and do landscaping. And, I always joke, my brother and I are probably the only two sons of billionaires in America that can drive a D10 Caterpillar because they made us do it. Well, his theory was really simple. It's a lot of common sense, which these days we all know is not too common. Hey, if one day you're going to go build a building, you better know how to dig the foundation. You better know what it costs to actually do these things. You better know how much time it takes, because otherwise someone's just going to screw you blind if they just think, you're just the guy in the gilded office with no understanding of what's going on. You're going to get taken advantage of. And so, frankly, in my life and from them, I learned so much more, and we really were, raised by like construction workers far more than the executives. He said, there'll be plenty of time for the executive stuff once you get out of college, but when you're young and you get those formative years, you're going to live with those tough guys that'll actually make you tough.
Sounds like some hard-won wisdom, Jackie Campbell.
It absolutely does, and I love that. I mean, I think there's nothing like learning how to drive a tractor and be independent and knowing how to work hard. There's nothing wrong with work ethic, and I was really, I enjoyed hearing those stories and some of the great things that he had to say.
Here's another clip from Donald Trump Jr. talking about offering some retirement advice.
Start planning for it. Again, there's so many unknowns that happen in life that you can't plan for. You may want to work forever, and you may think you're going to be able to, and then something happens, an accident, a health problem, whatever it may be. So you got to plan for that to happen. I think you got to plan, especially in a family business, sort of the generational aspects of those things. There's so much you can do with proper planning to avoid taxes and whatever it may be, to be able to make sure that the things that you created oftentimes as a family actually ends up in the hands of that family. And not the government. You have to be active. Obviously, everything is so situational. Every business is a little bit different. Everything has different, a different tax code that goes around it. But no different than managing the relationships within the family business. You definitely have to plan for that and stay ahead.
Boy, it's almost like something we say every weekend here on Beyond the Money Radio.
The 3 Ps?
Prior
planning pays.
Interesting.
That's right. Doesn't matter how many billions or how many zeros you have in your accounts, right? It's still the same process. It's the same planning and having that, the team, right? He mentioned taxes more than once, I think, and succession planning, right? We as business owners, we're thinking about when we first start our career, you're thinking about the excitement and your vision and what you're trying to accomplish. And then as you go by, it's about creating the legacy. How does the business last beyond you? The same thing for individuals, right? It's what happens because I was here. So I think that's really interesting that, the planning part, it doesn't matter how many zeros you have in your accounts, what family name you have as your last name, and if you have a business or not. It's all similar planning. And again, Mark, it's going to come down to the math.
Yep. It's all about the math. One more clip for him. Donald Trump Jr. as we were down in Mar-a-Lago. And you can see some of the incredible pictures when you give the team a follow on social media. Just put a search on it. Campbell Company Wealth Advisors and CPAs. And we got to have our picture made under the big 40-story flag. I think it was just waving the entire time. It was truly a wonderful experience with you and Scott and some of our friends. But here's Donald Trump Jr. talking about his father's energy, and everybody wants to know, why is he always tweeting at midnight?
He's a freak. No, I mean that in a compliment. But it's always been that way. I mean, the guy doesn't sleep. I remember, in my younger days, right out of college and starting to work, in the business and everything like that, 20-something-year-old kid in New York City, Saturday morning, 5 o'clock, I'd get a call. By the way, I got in at 4:35, so it's this is not one of the best phone calls I've ever had to pick up. I pick up, Don, why aren't you in the office? Why aren't you in the office, Dad? I'm in the office. That's why I know you're not here. 5 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. Why are you in the office at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday? Just to make sure I'm not there. Couldn't you just call me from home? But he's just that guy. He's a bored Donald Trump. If he has downtime, that's when we get in trouble. That's when some random tweet that starts yeah. And that's I get that a lot, right? It's hey Don, have you ever thought about telling your dad to not tweet so much? No, I never thought of that. Because I'm a freaking imbecile. Not once. In all the times when they call me 20 minutes later, hey, you got to go on TV at 4 o'clock in the morning to go fix that. What are the talking points? I don't know, man. You're on your own. You'll figure it out. No, never once had I thought about maybe, it'd be more ideal if he didn't do that. So he's always been who he is. He's just very consistent.
He's very self-aware of who he is and who his father is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Some of the things that he talked about and his imitations were pretty great. I just always remember saying that I'm grateful that my kids, Jacob and Brooke, do not imitate me. And that they're not stand-up comics. So yeah, that's pretty funty. But yeah, the tweeting, if he could just figure that out. But yeah, I mean, definitely an entrepreneur. President Trump, Donald Trump Jr., definitely entrepreneurial minded. And you're right, he's spot on. You find an entrepreneur who's bored, or there's going to be a lot of fires to put out.
That's right. And you can see the pictures again when you give the team a follow on social media, Campbell Company Wealth Advisors and CPAs. And we will play more from our conversation with Donald Trump Jr. over the next couple of weeks, where he talks about, is the American dream still alive? And he details where he was when he got the call that his father was almost assassinated. We'll get to that in the next couple of weeks here. But first, Jackie Campbell.
Now, the Beyond the Money tip of the day.
Tax loss harvesting. That may be something that you've never heard before and are unsure about, but it is another potential opportunity, just like Roth conversion planning and any other tax planning strategy. You may have an asset that has not performed well. Even though the market keeps melting up, if you have something that has a loss on the books, maybe we consider that and some tax loss harvesting strategies before the end of this year. So definitely something to pay attention to. Don't just continue to pay taxes, and hold on to that asset that maybe is not going to have any opportunity or any potential to recover or rebound. So tax loss harvesting is one of the strategies that we use here at Campbell Company. And give us a call, 352-251-1015, if you want to have any sort of tax planning strategies. 352-251-1015 or online at mycampbellandco.com.
Well, Jackie, as always, thank you. Thank you for the education and the information this weekend. Speaking of the website, mycampbellandco.com, if you missed anything, you can stream the Beyond the Money radio show and the Beyond the Money podcast, all commercial-free from the homepage. Again, mycampbellandco.com. Jackie, we are back next weekend, but before we get out of here, let's give you the final word.
If you're listening today and there's any other conversations that you would like to have about your one financial life, we would love the opportunity to have that call with you, that discovery call, to see how we might be able to help you. Because at the end of the day, we all have one financial life. So we want to make it as good and as simplified and get all those messes cleaned up so that we can keep enjoying life and retirement. Give us a call, 352-251-1015, or online at mycampbellandco.com. This is Jackie Campbell, Certified Financial Planner and Certified Public Accountant of Campbell Company, Wealth Advisors and CPAs. Join us again next time on Beyond the Money Radio and Beyond the Money Podcast.